From the crude wooden clubs of the 1840s to today's precision-engineered maple masterpieces, the baseball bat has undergone a remarkable transformation that mirrors the evolution of America's pastime itself. This journey takes us through the rise of legendary brands like Louisville Slugger, the great wood wars between ash and maple, the scandals of corked bats that rocked the sport, and the ongoing debate over why college players swing aluminum while the pros stick to wood. Without further ado, let's dive into the history of baseball bats. The baseball bat's story begins in the smoky taverns and open fields of 1840s America, where a game called baseball was slowly taking shape. In these early days, players simply grabbed whatever piece of wood felt right, often crude, hand-carved clubs that bore little resemblance to the refined instruments we know today and that were sometimes called striker sticks. The earliest baseball bats were typically made from whatever hardwood was locally available. Hickory was popular in some regions due to its incredible density and durability, while others preferred ash for its lighter weight and flexibility. These early bats came in all shapes and sizes, with some players favoring thick, heavy clubs, while others opted for lighter, more maneuverable designs. One fascinating aspect of early bat design was the influence of cricket. Many early baseball players were familiar with cricket bats, which were flat and paddle-shaped. Some of the earliest baseball bats actually retained this flat design, though they were gradually rounded as players discovered that a cylindrical shape provided better control and power. The first attempt at standardization came in 1859, when the newly formed National Association of Baseball Players established that bats could be no larger than 2.5 inches in diameter. This rule was revolutionary, representing the first formal recognition that equipment standardization was necessary for fair competition. However, there were still no restrictions on length, weight, or wood type, leaving plenty of room for innovation. The 1870s marked a turning point in baseball bat manufacturing, as the sport transitioned from a gentleman's hobby to a professional enterprise. The formation of the National League in 1876 created a standardized set of rules and, more importantly, a market for consistent, high-quality equipment. Several key innovations emerged during this period. The most significant was the development of the bottle bat shape, which featured a thick barrel that tapered dramatically to a thin handle. This design provided the perfect balance of power and control that hitters were seeking. These are also the inspiration for modern baseball's torpedo bats, which caused some controversy earlier in the 2025 season. The late 1870s saw the emergence of the first commercial bat manufacturers. Companies like A.G. Spalding and Brothers began producing bats on a larger scale, though they were still primarily handmade. These early manufacturers recognized that different players had different preferences, leading to various models and styles. Wood selection became increasingly sophisticated during this period. White ash emerged as the preferred choice for many players due to its excellent strength-to-weight ratio and its ability to flex without breaking. The grain structure of ash also provided excellent shock absorption, reducing the sting that players felt when making contact with the ball. The 1880s brought further refinements. The introduction of the lathe, a machine tool that rotates a workpiece about an axis of rotation to perform various operations such as cutting, sanding, drilling, and turning, allowed for more precise shaping and consistent. Production manufacturers could now create bats with exact specifications, leading to the development of signature models for star players. Learning something new about the history of baseball bats? Go ahead and hit that bell icon below to subscribe to our channel so that we can keep enlightening you about America's pastime with future videos. The most famous chapter in baseball bat history began in 1884 with a chance encounter between Pete Browning, star player for the Louisville Eclipse, and J.F. Hillerich, a 17-year-old woodworker's apprentice. The story goes that Browning had broken his favorite bat and was in a terrible hitting slump when young Hillerich approached him after a game and offered to make him a new one. Browning went 3 for 3 the next day, and the legend of the Louisville Slugger was born. The Hillerich Company revolutionized bat manufacturing in several key ways. First, they pioneered the concept of player endorsements, working directly with star players to develop signature models. This wasn't just about putting a player's name on a bat. It involved careful collaboration to create designs that matched each player's specific preferences and hitting style. Pittsburgh Pirates legend Honus Wagner became one of the first players in sports history to sign an endorsement contract with the company in 1905, receiving $75 for the use of his name and likeness. This marked the beginning of what would become a fundamental aspect of baseball marketing, with players' signatures burned into the barrel of the bat becoming a mark of quality and authenticity. The Louisville Slugger brand also introduced several manufacturing innovations that set new standards for the industry. They developed more sophisticated wood selection processes, carefully choosing pieces of ash that met specific criteria for grain structure, density, and moisture content. They also invested in better machinery and quality control processes. During the 1910s and 1920s, Louisville Slugger became synonymous with baseball excellence. Legendary players like Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, and Lou Gehrig all swung. Louisville Sluggers and the company's marketing emphasized this connection between their bats and baseball success. As we mentioned earlier, white ash initially reigned supreme as the wood of choice for baseball bats. However, the dominance of ash began to be challenged in the 1990s and 2000s as manufacturing techniques improved and players became more willing to experiment. Maple, in particular, began to gain popularity among power hitters who appreciated its harder, denser composition. Unlike ash, which has a more open grain structure, maple has a tight, closed grain that creates a harder hitting surface. The maple revolution was led by players like Barry Bonds, who began using maple bats in the late 1990s. Bonds worked with bat maker Sam Bat to develop maple bats that met his specific requirements. The results were impressive. Bonds hit 73 home runs in 2001, most of them with maple bats, helping to popularize the wood among other power hitters. Of course, most believe that it wasn't just maple bats that added to Bonds' power potential, if you're catching our drift. While maple bats tended to be more durable in terms of being less prone to flaking and chipping, they were typically heavier than ash bats, and when they did break, they tended to shatter more dramatically. By the 2010s, maple had become the dominant wood in Major League Baseball, with estimates suggesting that over 70% of big league players were using maple bats. Few topics in baseball generate as much debate and fascination as the use of corked bats. The practice of hollowing out the barrel of a bat and filling it with cork has been a persistent source of controversy, with players, fans, and scientists debating both its effectiveness and its ethics. The theory behind corked bats is straightforward. By removing some of the wood from the barrel and replacing it with lighter cork, a player can maintain the same bat length, while reducing the overall weight. This should allow for faster swing speeds, which should theoretically translate to more power. More on that in a moment. One of the most famous corked bat incidents occurred in 1994 when Chicago White Sox slugger Albert Belle was caught using a corked bat during a game against the Cleveland Indians. After Belle was discovered, what happened next became baseball legend. That night, Indians pitcher Jason Grimsley volunteered to break into the umpire's locked room to replace Belle's corked bat with a teammate's legal one. Grimsley crawled through the ceiling tiles of Cleveland Stadium and successfully switched the bats, but the plan backfired when officials realized the replacement bat belonged to Paul Sorrento, a player who used a completely different model than Belle. Belle was ultimately suspended for 10 games, as it turns out that Grimsley's plan had more holes in it than a corked bat. Another famous incident occurred in 2003 when Chicago Cubs slugger Sammy Sosa was caught using a corked bat during a game against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Sosa claimed it was an accident, saying he had mistakenly grabbed a bat he used only for batting practice. While MLB officials found no evidence of corking in the other 76 bats they tested from Sosa's collection, the incident tarnished his reputation. Despite what ballplayers may believe, researchers at the University of Illinois found that corked bats actually reduce the speed of the ball off the bat during a 2011 study. The reduced mass means less energy is transferred to the ball, resulting in shorter fly balls. So why do players continue to use them? Some experts believe players who think they're using a juiced bat may feel more confident, which could end up helping their batting average. Did you or any of your baseball teammates ever dream of corking a bat or finding some other way of getting an unfair advantage at the plate? Let us know in the comments below. While professional baseball has remained committed to wooden bats, the amateur levels underwent a dramatic transformation in the 1970s with the introduction of aluminum bats. This shift fundamentally changed college and high school baseball, creating a divide between amateur and professional play that continues today. The first aluminum bats were developed in the early 1970s by companies like Easton and Worth. These early models were virtually unbreakable, which was crucial for cash-strapped amateur programs that couldn't afford to constantly replace broken wooden bats. The NCAA officially approved aluminum bats for college baseball in 1974, and the change was immediate and dramatic. Offensive numbers skyrocketed as players discovered that aluminum bats were much more forgiving than wood. The larger sweet spot meant that off-center hits that would have resulted in weak grounders with wooden bats were now turning into line drives and home runs. Aluminum bats were also lighter than wooden bats of the same length, allowing players to generate faster swing speeds. They also had a trampoline effect that compressed and rebounded upon contact with the ball, adding extra velocity. The hollow construction meant that weight could be distributed more evenly, creating better balance and control. However, the shift to aluminum also created challenges. The increased offensive production led to longer games and higher scores, which some purists felt changed baseball's fundamental nature. The safety concerns led to ongoing efforts to regulate aluminum bat performance. The NCAA introduced the ball exit speed ratio (BESR) standard in 1999, limiting how fast a ball could come off an aluminum bat. This was later replaced by the more restrictive bat-ball coefficient of restitution (BBCOR) standard in 2011. The 21st century has brought unprecedented technological advancements to baseball bat manufacturing. Computer-aided design, KD, and finite element analysis now allow manufacturers to optimize bat performance before a single piece of wood is cut. Companies can model how different designs will perform under various conditions, fine-tuning weight distribution, barrel diameter, and handle thickness. The wood selection process has become increasingly sophisticated. Modern manufacturers use moisture meters, density analyzers, and other instruments to evaluate wood quality before turning billets into bats. Some companies have developed proprietary wood treatment processes that enhance performance characteristics without violating league regulations. The rise of small boutique bat manufacturers has also been significant. Companies like Marucci, Old Hickory, and Victus have gained prominence by focusing on craftsmanship, customization, and direct relationships with players. These companies often emphasize traditional techniques combined with modern quality control. Looking toward the future, several trends are likely to shape the next generation of baseball bats. Sustainability is becoming increasingly important, with manufacturers exploring more environmentally friendly wood sourcing practices. The use of data analytics to optimize bat design for individual players represents a return to custom craftsmanship traditions, but with modern technology guiding the process. The history of the baseball bat is ultimately a story about the intersection of tradition and innovation, craftsmanship, and technology. What's remarkable about this evolution is how it has maintained a connection to the game's roots while embracing new possibilities. The wooden bat remains the standard in professional baseball, not just because of tradition, but because it represents a perfect balance of challenge and skill. The limitations of wood are not flaws to be corrected, but essential elements that define the art of hitting. The humble baseball bat, in all its forms and iterations, remains a testament to human ingenuity and the eternal quest for perfection in America's pastime. Whether carved from ash or maple, the bat represents the tool that transforms raw athletic ability into the poetry of motion that is a perfectly executed swing that makes for the sweet crack of a wood bat that countless baseball fans have fallen in love with over the centuries.